In this lesson, we'll be learning how to do lip syncing in Adobe Animate. I've got a finished file here and I'll just use this one to demonstrate before we start to build one from scratch. I think the best thing to do is just to hit the play movie and we'll watch this in the browser. Now I do have a start button, so it's paused on beginning and we click the start button.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Okay, so that's the piece right there, and then it comes back to the first frame and you can always play it again. All right, so let me jump back into Animate here and just go back to my timeline and talk about how this was built. Let me start with the library items. You'll have to download these off the website and you'll get the audio file as well here and all of these images that are required to create this piece. Okay, you'll also get the alphabet, the mouth alphabet if you will, and we keep that off the side of the stage as a reference. Okay, so that doesn't play ultimately, but it is on one of my layers here and it is outside of the stage area. Okay, so speaking of the layers, let's just quickly go through them here. The bottom layer, which is currently locked, is the face. Happens to be Marilyn Monroe, and I photoshopped the mouth out so that I could put the cartoon one above it. Next layer above is the mouth indeed, and it is a graphic symbol. And if I double click on that graphic symbol, it is a series of keyframes with each of the 12 mouth shapes uniquely in each frame. So there's 12 frames altogether, and they all have their unique shapes as you see. All right, it's similar to a movie clip, but it's a graphic symbol with each mouth shape keyframed in its own frame. So let's go back up to scene 1, and we're going to leverage that feature a little later. Next layer up, I've got a button layer just for our button trigger. And above that, a layer for our sound, as you see the audio waveform in there. And here I have the labels layer, and it's keyframed on frame number 2. And I do have a frame label on there called Go. And then finally, in the top layer, I've got my action script in frame 1, as you can see here. Okay, so we'll quickly go to the code. I'll call up my actions window. And very simply, I've got the stop command so that it's paused when it begins to play. And this has to do with triggering the button. So here's the reference to the button. And it will just go to and play starting on this frame right here. And all of the animation for the lip syncing is actually done here, leveraging a special feature that we will apply against this graphic symbol. Okay, let me just close this window now. So the way this works is we have a window called the frame picker. So I'm going to call that up from my window menu, frame picker. And I'm actually going to drag the tab out here and open it up a bit further. And what that does is it reflects when I highlight a graphic symbol on the stage, for example, the one on here, it shows me what's on each and every one of those keyframes that I had shown you earlier. Okay, and the currently highlighted one is the one that's going to show up with this particular keyframe. So the idea is with the frame picker open and you have the top set, there are 3 settings that you can choose from. You have loop by default, play once, single frame. Make sure it's on single frame like I have here. Okay, so with that set to single frame and your frame picker open, you just keyframe that graphic symbol where you need to and choose the new shape. All right, so if I drag this across, you'll see when I get to the keyframe, it changes shapes and you'll see that there's a different one highlighted. So the idea here is to listen to it, scrub back and forth, comprehend what's being said and try to figure that out phonetically according to the chart over here. Okay, and you keyframe as often as you feel you need to be convincing in the lip sync. So again, I can just hit my return key right now.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again.
Okay, so again, when I click away, this disengaged, but to gain access to that, once again, I can select it on the stage. Okay, so that's really the trick on how this gets done. So it's more or less, the hard part is analyzing the signal, right? You can see the peaks in it, so it gives you an idea where the words start and where the, I guess, you know, where the percussive elements are. And you keyframe it there. Now you can always grab a keyframe too and move it left or right as well if you want to make a fine tuning. Okay, so having said all that, I'm just going to resave this file, and I'll start a brand new file and load up all the elements, and we'll build one from scratch. Alright, so let's create a brand new file here. File new. And I'm just going to go with the smallest size, standard here. Make sure I'm on HTML5 canvas. Click create. And I'll save it right away, save as. And I'm not sure, I guess I'll save it in my Animate exercise file. And I'll call it the lip sync. And I might have one by that name already, so I'll just go _2 and save that. Okay. So I'll load up the elements as well before we get started. So I'll import all of those to the library. Import to library, and I think I downloaded it off my desktop onto my desktop. It's a folder called mouth. Let me just find it. Here we go. Alright, so I'm just going to click on there and shift click to grab them all at once. There's an audio file and a whole bunch of PNGs. Open. Alright, let's go take a look in the library, make sure they're all there, and there they are. I'm just going to check the audio file quickly. Select it and hit the preview button.
Yep.
Alright, that works fine, and here are the other images. Okay, so we can start to build this. I'm going to hide the frame picker for now, and we'll bring it back up when we need it later, and start to build my layer. So I'm going to start bottom layer, I'll call it face, and I'll create a layer above that, and I'll call it mouth, and then a layer above that, and I'll call that one sound. And I guess I'll devote a layer for my frame labels. We're going to start with a paused first frame and click a button to advance to frame 2 to initiate the movie. Okay, so for that reason I'm going to create a frame label. And above that, a layer for my code actions. Okay, just going to save that and start at the bottom. And there will be some resizing needing to be done here, so we'll take care of that as we generate things. I'll start with the Marilyn Monroe picture, and that will need to be made bigger. So I'll just go to my free transform tool and hold my shift key down and just make it bigger than the frame, and just kind of try to put the mouth just below the center point there. And that's good for me there. And maybe to make it less jarring, I'll go to my properties and click on the stage color, and I'll just make it something in the general area of that color. Let's see here. How about that? Okay. Just going to save every time I do something. And let's see here. Okay. And I guess at this point we will create the graphic symbol that will contain all the mouth parts, if you will. So I'm going to the layer called mouth and back to my library. I'm just going to drag out mouth 01 to the stage. And it will need to be resized. So what I think I will do is actually, let's see here. I guess I'll resize it right now, and then I'm going to put it in the movie clip. Okay? And then from there on, we're going to create 12 keyframes with each one of those mouth shapes in a keyframe. So I'm just going to resize this. And roughly, see, I think that's not so bad there actually, like that. Okay, go back to my selection tool. With it highlighted, I'm going to create a graphic symbol. Convert to symbol. Make sure you choose graphic, and I'll name it mouth as well. That's what it will be called in the library. And click OK, and a quick save. And I'm going to go into that symbol now. It's like a movie clip, so it does have its own timeline. So if I double click it, you'll see on the timeline here, we are now like one level deep. We're in the nested timeline here of the graphic symbol called mouth. Okay, so what I propose to do is to duplicate this. I think we're going to use up around 12 frames. I'll just make them a little more expand out. And the trick I'm going to use is I'm going to just copy this like over 12 frames, and then I'm going to swap them. So what I can do is I believe I can just select all the frames like that. I just shift clicked on frame 12, and I'm going to hit F6, which is keyframe. So what I just did was I basically replicated that graphic element as a keyframe across 12 frames. So let's just replace them now. So I will go to my properties. They are numbered, but I'm missing number 5 and number 10. So you just need to keep track of that. So the way we swap is we select it on the stage. And this double arrow here is our swap button, which calls up our images. And in this case, actually, I do want to keep number 1 in the first frame. So I'll go to the second one here. Move your playhead, select it on the stage, hit the swap button, and just swap it out with, in this case, number 2 for frame 2. Okay, so I'm going to go all down the line here. Clicking on the stage, swapping, and this is number 3. Number 3, there we go. And I am saving as I go. Over to the 4th frame, select it on the stage, and replace it. Okay. A little labor intensive, but it's worth it in the long run. So there is no 5, so I'm going to jump to the next one in sequence, which is the number 6 here. Okay. And on to the next one. And I'm on, I believe, number 8 now. Next one will be number 9. And there is no number 10, so the next one will be number 11. It is the next one in sequence, so just follow the sequence and you'll be fine. And this will be number 12. 2 more. Okay. Number 13 goes there, and the last one here, number 14. All right. So let me do a big save on that. And if I just scrub my playhead, you'll see it's all the different mouth shapes. Okay, so there's that. So let's get out of there now and go back up to scene 1. And I'm going to add the library on the side of the stage as a reference. And I think I'll just put it down in the face layer. And I'll put it off the stage, like the stage is defined by this black line here. So I'm just going to use my spacebar, move that over a bit. Open up my library and drag out mouth alphabet. Now I know it's too big, so I will reduce my view. I'm just using my command minus on the Mac. It'd be control minus on the PC to shrink the view. And I'll select that, and I'll just go in with my free transform tool and just resize it. So something about the same height as the frame. Okay. And click away, and I'll just zoom back up here. And there we go. Okay, and using my space bar to move around here. All right, again, I'm just going to quickly save. So there's my reference. So the next frame up will be the sound. So we'll highlight that first keyframe in my sound layer, go to my properties, and whatever sounds are in my library will appear in this list, and there's just the one. Do make sure it's on stream, and I'll explain quickly why that is. So at this point, why don't we span out to 10 seconds? So I'm going to shrink my view for a second here, and there's my 10-second mark there. And I'm just going to drag downwards, roughly around the 10-second area. And just hit F5 to span everything out. Okay, the reason I did that was so I could see my audio wave, and it needed to be spanned out to play it anyway. And it looks like I still have a little ways to go, so I will increase that view a little bit. And just put my playhead before the end and hold down my F5 key. I think I'm quite close to the end. Yeah, it was right there, so I was very close, in fact. Okay, so that's where it stops, because I see the audio waveform has stopped right there. All right, again, I'm going to save. Now I'm going to go back to frame 1 because I've noticed with these HTML5 files sometimes the sound doesn't play when you initiate it on the first frame. So I'm actually going to go in, I'll make this view a bit bigger again, and I'm going to drag that keyframe over one frame. Alright. So I'm starting on frame 2 with the sound. I suppose I should have just created a keyframe on frame 2. But the point is we're starting our sound on frame 2. Okay? If you hit your return key, you should be able to hear it in this preview mode.
Yep. I said it before
and I'll just hit the same return key to stop it. Okay, so you can preview it in this mode. You don't need to run it through the browser, but I would certainly run it through the browser at least for a final check. And also, actually, when we add the buttons, you'll have to test it in the browser as well, which is coming up soon. So let me just save this right now. And speaking of those buttons, why don't we address that? Okay. You may have noticed, though, when the playhead scrubs, the mouth is just running through all of those frames inside of that graphic symbol. We're going to address that shortly, but right now let's just finish off the thought with the button and stopping the playhead on frame 1 when the movie starts. Okay. So with the frame labels, again, I'm going to make this a bit bigger here. Go to frame number 2 in the frame labels. Just frame 2, and I'm just going to keyframe that, F6. Okay, and I'll put a frame label in there right away. I'm just going to call it Go, G-O, lowercase. Hit my Enter key for that, and you see it appear here with a little red flag. Okay, let's go back to frame 1 with the playhead. And you know what? I'm going to make a separate layer for the button as well. So I'll put it just above the sound. So I'll select the sound, new layer, I'll call it button. Okay, and in frame 1, actually let's keyframe frame 2 right away. Okay, and the idea here is that I'm going to go back to frame 1, but I'll have an isolated frame in frame 1. Okay, so it's there that I'm going to create my button, and I'm just going to quickly create an oval with the oval tool, and maybe we'll just keep that red, and I do have a black stroke set up. I'm going to keep that, and I'm just going to draw it up here with my shift key down, and that'll be my start button. So I'm just going to come over here with the selection tool, double click it. I do want to increase the stroke weight a bit, and maybe I'll make that a bit lighter on the red. Okay, like that, and then I will make that a button. Convert to symbol. We'll make sure we select the button feature, and because it's going to be the only one, I'll use the generic name button for the library. Click OK. And I'm going to double click it. I'm just going to click create a little mouse over feature within it. So we just keyframe the over state, as you know, and then select that color on the stage and just change it. So I'm just going to make it lighter, I guess. Maybe go keep with the reds here, like that. Okay, so it's going to start dark, and when you mouse over it, it will go a little lighter. Now with respect to that button, let's give it an instance name as well. So with it selected, I'm just going to call it start underscore btn. Okay, and I will save. So we're pretty well set up now to set the trigger button, but let's add our first bit of code as a pause in frame 1. So I'm going to select that first frame in my actions layer, call up my actions, and just add a stop on this frame kind of concept. So there's my stop. Where's my stop? Right there. This timeline next with this frame. Finish and add, and that's going to create the pause on frame 1. So let's address that button now. Since we already created a instance name, we're ready to access it through the wizard. Add using wizard. So here we want to do a go to and play. So go to frame label and play. This timeline, and here we're prompted to type in the frame label. Go, G-O. Then I click next, and I want it to be triggered on a mouse click, and the only button I have is called start underscore btn. Makes it easy to choose, and finish and add. Save that, and I'll do a test movie now. So I'm going to close my actions panel here. Alright, and if I click the play button, the mouth should start. You will hear the speech, but it's not synced up yet, of course. And the mouth is just going to run through all of those different frames.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it.
Okay, so that's that. Let's go back to Animate and continue on with that. And I'll need to call up my timeline. And okay, this is where the fun begins. So when you scrub the playhead, you can hear it. And the reason you can hear it is, I'll go back, I'll select this property here, is because your sync was set to stream in your sound. If it was set to event, just to show you, you don't hear it when you scrub, okay? So do make sure, you have to select the keyframe the sound's on to access this, that the sync is set to stream. Okay, now you also would just hit your return key or your enter key.
Yep.
And you hit it to start and stop. Okay, so you're going to be going back and forth a few times, no doubt. But once you know what's being spoken, scrub to those, you know, prompts like the beginning of the words, right? And the idea is you keyframe this graphic symbol, and with the frame picker, we're going to bring that up now. There it is right there. You designate the mouse shape, and we're going to base the mouse shape on our little mouth alphabet over here. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole 10 seconds and bore you. I'll do the first few seconds and you'll get the idea, but you are required to do the whole speech as your assignment. Okay, so with the frame picker open, the first thing we need to do is change this setting from loop to single frame. As soon as we do that, this no longer changes as the playhead moves. It needs to be prompted with a keyframe. And to access the frame picker, you do need to select on the graphic symbol on the stage. Okay, so right here, let me just hit my return key.
Yep.
He says yep. So I'm going to start. You can see the audio waveform, right? So you're going to have to use that as a cue as well. But scrubbing gives you a good idea, right? So I'm right at the beginning where the word starts, and yeah. So I could just keep it with the mouth open there. Or I could go to this one here, and I think I'm going to switch to this one with the Y. Okay, so the way I do that is like click on the stage, and that's number 4. So if I want to line this up, I could probably shrink my window a little here. And there they're stacked in the same way. It makes it a lot easier. And I'm going to pick that one because the Y is on that one. Okay, it makes a change there. So that's the yeah. And you can sort of see the peak here with the P. So I'm going to move the playhead over here. And I'll also bring to your attention that once I changed it over in the frame picker, it did create its own keyframe. Okay, so it's a fairly nice process. So again, select it on the stage. This is where I'm looking for the letter P. And it's right here. So it's number 7 here on the picker. And that's yep. So let's go back and let's just see how that feels. Hit my return key.
Yep.
So that was pretty good, I think. Like it was definitely there.
Yep.
And Marilyn agrees. Anyhow, let's save the file. And we're just going to move along and I'll do a bit more here. But that's the exercise right there. Okay. So I'm just going to move my playhead along. And if I let it play here, just to make sure I know it's right here. So I suggest you listen to it so you understand what the words are.
I said it before.
So I said it before is the phrase. I said it before. And it starts right about here. So you're looking for the I. I would be this one right here. Okay. So select it on the stage. It's number 1. I. And it sounds like said starts about here. So S is this one right here. Select it on the stage. Choose the appropriate frame. And duh is also that one. So I think I'm just going to close the mouth right here really quickly in between words. Right here like that. All right, and let's just sort of see how that feels. I said
it before.
Okay, I think it's okay. I said it. So before starts here. You can distinctly see the audio waveform, right? So B, I'm looking for the B. B actually starts with this. So E, I'll go very quickly after it and I'll attribute the E sound. B. I'm going to guess the F is with this little peak here. And F is right over here. So right there. B4. Or I could maybe throw an O in there. Let's try it. So or, and then the R. Let's see, where's the R? Right over here. So this is going to be fairly quick. Let me scrub here.
I said it before. I said it before. I said it before. I said it before.
So I think these might be a little advanced. So I'm going to grab that and move it over. And grab that one and move it over. And just fill that up there. I'm actually going to delete this keyframe. Shift F6. Shift F6. All right. Let's try that now.
I said it before. I said it before.
Okay. So the R seems to come around here. So we'll just highlight it there with the R. And then it goes to and. So it's back to that one fairly quickly. And the D is here. And and I'll go over here. I right here. The L is right there. I'm going to guess that that's the L. Let me hear it back here. So there's an S that starts around here. Okay, so the S is right here. And A. I'm going to use the E for the A. And we'll just go there where I see the sound starting again. And let's see how that feels. Yeah, that kind of fits. Okay, I'll just start it from here. Return.
I said it before and I'll say it.
Yeah, that's working. So, more or less, you know, you're going to have to use your ears and you're going to have to go over a few times, back and forth, back and forth. The scrubbing is very helpful, right, to find your cues. And I do recommend just hitting the return key, the enter key,
I said it before and I'll
to get it, you know, in context, right? And you might have to do it like, you know, like that just to get it. And then you just keyframe it, save it as you go. Okay, I'm going to do a quick test in movie for this to make sure it plays back, but I'm not going to finish the 10 seconds here. Okay, so I've got my start button.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again.
Okay.
Life moves pretty fast.
So there we have it. Let me go back to Animate here. This is how you lip sync. The main idea is that you use a graphic symbol and you work with it in conjunction with the frame picker over here, set at single frame. And then you just set a keyframe, choose your appropriate frame, and it switches to that frame. And that's your assignment for today.